Hi there. I'm Kyle Woody at Jack's Caregiver Coalition, where our mission is to improve the way that guys think, feel, and act in their role as a cancer caregiver. A mission we accomplish by meeting them where they are in spaces that inspire solace and renewal. Thank you for helping us shine a light today on Mr. Chris Meuleners. Chris is a dedicated caregiver with a huge heart. A caregiver that inspires us because of his high level of engagement with our mission. A level of engagement that demonstrates to me that he is in a relentless pursuit of excellence in his role as a primary caregiver for his lovely bride, Amanda. Jack's message was simple. Serve the caregiver, he said. They're always forgotten. A message I just happened to be the first person to receive. We're here to serve you, they said, and they were looking at me. That moment, those words, and the service I experienced changed my life forever. Today, we're proud that at Jack's, we've served hundreds of cancer caregivers, and that 97% of those we've surveyed believe we contributed to their sense of improvement as a caregiver. The accomplishments we're proudest of, though, are the stories of caregivers connecting through our programs. Stories like you're going to hear today from Chris. How they've shown up for each other in meaningful, intangible, and in inspiring ways. Joining each other's caregiving teams. Lending an understanding ear during an intense and uncertain time. Providing solace when it's needed most, just before frightening surgical procedures. And providing community long after their journey comes to an end, be that through remission of the disease or through the loss of their loved ones. These are the stories that are the purpose of this campaign. These are the stories that you can help us make many more of. For most guys, like Chris, caring for a loved one with cancer is a world of relentless uncertainty and isolation. Two things we've all had a taste of in this new era of COVID-19. Two things that breed fear, anxiety, exhaustion, and depression. Two things that cause many guys, unfortunately, to isolate themselves even further because they were taught that reaching out was a sign of weakness. But we imagine a very different future for these guys, a future that you can help us make a reality. Our vision is a community for guys who are caregivers. Caregivers for loved ones of any catastrophic illness. The community that we imagine will someday ensure that every caregiver like Chris experiences renewal and solace every single day. A community that inspires and equips every caregiver like Chris to face their challenges boldly, with energy, with enthusiasm, and with confidence. A community that will someday give an entire team of highly equipped caregivers to every single person facing catastrophic illness like Amanda. In closing, I want to express our gratitude for our campaign host, Richard Anderson, for our producer, Chris Cloutier, for the support of Dan Kramer, and of course, for today's honoree, Chris Meuleners. These guys have all come together to make today's broadcast a reality. And on behalf of everyone at Jack's, we want to thank you for considering helping us make 14 more stories of caregiver support like Chris's real.
Hey everybody, welcome back. My name is Rich Anderson and I'm your host for episode number 6 of the Jack's Caregiver Coalition Shine the Light series. And it is my honor and distinct pleasure to bring an awesome guest forward today, Mr. Chris Meuleners. We'll get to talk to him just very briefly. Before we do that, I want to thank Kyle Woody for that introduction, telling us a little bit more about Jack's, and really setting Chris up for some really good content here today. As a reminder, Shine the Light is a fundraising campaign. We can't do it without you. All right? Anything that you can do, even if it's just to refer us to somebody else who is going through the caregiving journey or somebody else who might be sympathetic to our cause, that would be awesome. Please pay it forward. Help us spread the word so that more male caregivers know that we're a resource for them. The Shine the Light campaign is currently trying to raise $10,250, and my producer told me that we're well over halfway before this episode, but this is the last one out of 3. So we need to make a strong push and see if we can get over that $10,000 mark. Doing so would help us fund 14 more stories like Chris's. I've already introduced you to several Jacks, including Roger and Andreas and Mike, and there's going to be more to come, I'm sure, after this. But Chris is a personal favorite of mine. I've known Chris now for a couple of years. I've met his wife, Amanda. They've been to our house. We've been to their house. This is personal. For those that don't know, I'm also a Jack. My wife is going through cancer, has been for over 5 years, and continues to go through that cancer journey, and I continue to be a caregiver for her. And so this is more than just a video opportunity for me. I also serve on the board of directors. I help with fundraising, and I have the distinct pleasure of being your host. So sit tight, get out your wallets, and help us raise some money, and let's meet Mr. Chris Meuleners. Chris, come on in.
Hey, how's it going, Rich? Good. We are holding together here this week.
And it's one of those things, right? I love how you say this week. I'm surprised you didn't say today, because as a caregiver, your time continuum changes, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes it's day to day, sometimes it's hour to hour. So yeah, we're doing well. It's been a good week.
Yeah, if you can say it's a good week. If you can say it's a good week, I know what you mean by that, and that's awesome news. So Chris, before we get to Amanda and we hear all about Jax and all the different things that you've done with Jax and the people that have helped you even outside of Jax, I want to go back a little bit, and I want to go back to the pre-cancer world of Chris and Amanda, maybe even the pre-cancer world of just Chris. Tell me a little bit about Chris prior to cancer. What did you like doing, and who were you? What was a day in the life of for Chris?
Wow, I think day in the life is kind of tough to drill down for so much time, because I always like just new experiences. So trying out new things, meeting new people, getting out and changing things up from time to time. And that's something that both Amanda and I really had in common in a lot of ways as well. So I kind of tried to figure out how I define myself various times. And so many people ask you, like, what do you do? And I don't know that there's ever necessarily a specific job that I've had that I would really cue into on, like, what do you do? But I act, I sing, I dance, I solve problems, I teach, I build, I create. I've probably been paid for all of those things at various different times.
Wow.
But I guess, problem solving is kind of what I do most now. And probably one of the key things that I have been able to kind of focus on and everything with this caregiver role.
Well, boy, there's nothing if not a list of problems to solve in the cancer caregiving journey. Is that right?
Yeah, precisely. So Amanda and I met 12 years ago, I guess. We've been married for 5 years, and prior to all of this cancer, we did a lot of traveling. We met swing dancing. We were both in Midsummer Night's Dream with the Minnesota Shakespeare Company. We're definitely both interested in acting and theater. We'd go out to karaoke pretty often, do some duets. She always liked show tunes. I do more like rock, and just always something new. So trying out new things, exploring, and all of that. Our honeymoon was in Italy. We went there for 3 weeks.
Wow.
Got a chance to travel around Tuscany and Cinque Terre and Rome and Venice and a lot of different things. So I don't know. Had big hopes, lots of things that we kind of expected to be continuing to do.
Yeah, no, I hear you, and that's and it's good to have that perspective, because I'm sure that you will agree that you can get lost in the caregiving journey and kind of forget what it was all about when you got started. I have a similar list of aspirations and hobbies and travel out, things, and as I meet other Jacks and as we coach one another, because sometimes it goes both ways, I think we need to remind each other that you have to honor some of that. Clearly, your life changes, right? And there's a lot of sacrifices and a lot of time that needs to be shifted about. But at some point, you still got to honor some of those things, or you start to lose who you are. Now, I know you, so I know that one of those things is running. Tell me a little bit about you and running.
Yeah, running has really kind of changed a lot in the last couple of, the last year, I suppose. I ran a lot in high school, ran cross country for about 5 years, stopped my freshman year of college. On the side, it just, from time to time, we go out and do Race for the Cure, do a 5K or something like that. I'd get out with a group of friends every once in a while, like a meetup group, a couple of times a month, maybe, I guess, the last couple of years. A lot of that really increased when I was in the caregiver role. When Amanda was in the hospital, sometimes I just needed something to keep myself productive and proactive. And so running last year, a little bit more, but still just a couple of times a month. That really changed after a trip we took. Amanda wanted to get down to this retreat in California last year. So 3-week long, organic, vegan, fresh, raw diet. And after the 3 weeks that we're down there, I felt great. I lost about 15 pounds or something like that. Had more energy. Came back home and went out for a run with some of these people in the meetup group. And, usually 4 or 5 miles would get me a little bit winded, worn out, and be like, okay, maybe next week or the week after. This time, one of my friends that was there said, I'm going to do a marathon in Madison in 3 weeks. I was like, I wanted to do a marathon sometime. And I'm not getting any younger. So I should just do that. Let's just, I feel like I can do anything right now. Let's just go ahead and do a marathon. Ran 13.7 miles the next week, took a little bit of a cutback week, and then went out and ran a marathon. And it worked pretty well. After that, felt good. Got a call from Leukemia and Lymphoma Society's team in training. I've been trying to reach out to them for months. And they just happened to reach out to me shortly after I did this marathon. And I ended up signing up with them to go to Disney in January, run a marathon again there, do some fundraising for Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, and cut another 26 minutes off my race pace for the next one. And was really excited about getting some more in and everything over this summer. I think I had about 5 events that got canceled here this summer, but still doing a lot. So in much better shape. I'm running 3-4 times a week or something. I'm working out more often and feeling awesome.
That's awesome, and thank you for sharing that. That's I think there's a lesson to be learned there. And again, Chris, I'd be curious if you've had conversations with other caregivers and given them any advice. But for me, what I heard from you is you found a way to kind of blow off some steam and to kind of go have that meditative me time that's really hard to find when you're in a caregiver role. And when we talk to some other jacks, they're really struggling with that. It just builds and builds and builds, and they don't get a chance to kind of vent that. And for me, God bless, I had a friend who got me into skeet shooting, and I'd never shot clays. I didn't own a gun, but there was something just invigoratingly refreshing about blowing stuff up. We would go for an hour, and I would blow these clays up, and I would come back feeling great. And I'm sure running does a little bit of that for you as well. It's allowed to vent steam. Do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been out skeet shooting with you too, and that works out great too. We'll just go ahead and blow up some clays. So
yeah.
When I'm shooting skeet though, I don't hit very many of them, so it makes it very different. Like I get to make the gun go boom, but I don't get to have things explode in front of me as often.
Well, and so you bring up a great example, Chris. Let me just remind everybody that we are trying to raise a little bit of money here. The event that Chris mentioned was a sporting clays event, and so we had a group of Chris. How many guys you supposed to join us that day?
Wow, man! I guess we had 4 in a group. Was it 12, maybe? 16?
It was at least, I think it was a dozen or so, and so a dozen of us guys got together. Jax, as an organization, helped pay for the cost of the sporting clays. A couple of the guys brought some guns, so we didn't have to rent any guns. And then we had some beverages and some snacks afterwards. But for the most part, we hung out together for probably 3 hours. And those types of events where we get to walk side by side and have some fun and laugh maybe for the first time all week, and to talk to people who get it. When you tell them that my wife's going in for chemo, or she had a bad day, or her mom was going to come help but she couldn't make it. We get it, right? And so we're asking the viewers to just help fund events like that, make it possible for people like Chris and I, or Chris and Andreas and Roger and Kyle and all these folks who are really struggling with their caregiver role to just go blow off some steam. Chris, have you been to any other events? I know the answer, but I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
yeah, quite a few of them, and I'm also one of the donors giving to events and everything too. So I'm a regular member. And then also, I've been able to join everybody for, besides the skeet shooting, what we did indoor skydiving. Was one of them. That was fantastic. We still got some pictures of both of us floating around out there, floating in the air. There was this was a small one. It was actually the water jet ski or water.
Oh yeah, it's where they like propel you up out of the water, right?
Yeah, totally. You're using like this hoverboard thing that just shoots water out of your legs and everything, and flying around like Iron Man and stuff. It was that was pretty fantastic.
Yeah.
We visited Paisley Park. That was the first one I went to. Was a tour at Paisley Park. First time I met a lot of the guys and everything on that event.
Yeah.
Those are a couple of them that really stand out. Man, I know that there's been a few more, but a lot of the times the things I remember, as much as some of the events are just really exhilarating and exciting and a great escape and something else to do, just a lot of it's the connections. So it's the conversations that you have with people afterwards. And so usually we go out, we do something that's just a little bit of a thrilling kind of a thing. Super fast go-karts, I remember, was one of those ones. We go out and race some go-karts for a while. Then afterwards, we hang out. We have some food, we have some drinks. We just we're able to connect and just get some ideas of what other people are doing. And I found it's so much more meaningful in a lot of ways than anything else I had done. I member of I've got a support group with Gilda's Club. Great opportunity to be able to meet a lot of other caregivers there. Have a therapist. I think everybody should be able to kind of talk through all the things that we're going through. But I was finding that in a lot of cases, it really just felt like I was just filling in. I was obligated to fill in another person on what's going on. And with the rest of the people at Jack's, it's like, you might have a 30-second, like, yeah, this is kind of what's happening with me, kind of a little bit of a set the stage and figure out some ways to connect. But everybody there is in the same boat. And if anything, it was kind of an opportunity to be able to get some advice. So it's like, you can really dig into, here's where I'm struggling right now. And, sometimes people will be able to give you a couple of tips. Sometimes people will be able to say, yeah, that sucks. It's a good thing you can get out to these every once in a while. And sometimes it's, it's just, they can actually come and help. So, it's being able to make those connections and figure some things out. We've seen so many people that are, they're moving, they've got something going on, they've got to get out to the hospital. Their significant other is going to be gone all weekend. Need help with the kids, help with the lawn, help with the, car, help with whatever. And I've never seen a time that somebody's asked for help and hasn't had, volunteers immediately. So it's just a great group of contacts of friends, supporters to be able to really help you out through some tough stuff.
I've got all sorts of questions that I would come back to on that one, but as our producer just pops this URL up, again, all those events cost a little bit of money. It's not super expensive, but the cost of the support, you talked about we should all have a therapist or a counselor or somebody. Ironically, I was looking for one when I found Kyle and was introduced to Jack's Caregiver Coalition. And at least at that point in my life, what I probably needed more of was the kinship, the camaraderie, the I get it kind of stuff. And so I called a counselor, I placed a voicemail, and they didn't call me back for over a week. And I'm thinking, what kind of help is this person going to be if they don't return calls in a week? And in the meantime, I met Kyle, I ended up meeting Andreas, I met Justin, and I said, these are my people. These are the guys I need to hang with. So I have a couple questions for you, but I want to tell a short story. I know this is your time, but I'm going to set you up. So my first event was well before you joined, and it was a golf 18 holes of golf. So it was an all-day deal, which, as you know, that's a lot of time to be away from your significant other, right? And so we golfed. It was kind of comical because most of us were terrible at golf, but we had fun and lost plenty of balls, and we even had caddies. So Jax provided a caddy to carry our bags and give us our clubs, so we felt really important even though we were terrible. And I get back to the clubhouse, and we're sitting there at the 19th hole. There's some beverages and some snacks, a salad, some food. There's a gentleman in the corner who's clearly one of the Jacks, but I didn't get to golf with him, so I didn't know him. His name is Bob. I walked over and said hi, and he was just kind of morose, just sitting there. I said, "How you doing?" And you could tell it was going to be one of those moments, right, Chris? You know these moments I'm talking about. After an event and after the skydiving adrenaline wears off, and you're kind of sitting off to the side, and you have this moment. And I said, "How you doing?" He said, "I'm good. That was fun." He said, "But I'm struggling with this guilt." I said, "What do you mean guilt?" He said, "I've been here for the last 5 hours playing golf and trying to have a fun time and relaxing, and now here I am having a beverage and talking to you guys, but she's at home and she's in bed and she's sick and there's nothing I can do about it. And I feel guilty." What do you do about that, Chris? Is that a guilt that you felt at all during your journey? How do you respond to that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a couple of things with that. I definitely feel it all the time. I mean, we've given up a lot. We don't do the things that we used to do. And now sometimes when she's actually feeling pretty good, she's still not really excited about getting out and doing the things that she used to do.
Yeah.
And we've talked about that. I've talked about that with other Jacks. I've talked about that with my therapist. And sometimes you still just gotta get out.
Yeah.
And at the same point, I check in with her and I ask, and I get her opinion on what her feelings are about everything that is happening, and if I can leave for a while. And usually she's like, "Yes, get out, go
Right.
do the thing." Like I'm not comfortable. I don't want to go. I don't want to see anybody and everything like that. But you can go.
Right.
And so most of the time we've got that kind of agreement and everything. And part of it also, and the same thing with the running and stuff like that too. Like, from time to time when she's been like, "Man, you're running a lot." I'm like, "Well, all right, I need to blow off some steam somehow." And so, it's like play some video games or go out with my buddies or drink or run. She's like, "Yeah, you can go out with your buddies, or you can go run. That sounds like a good plan."
Right.
So it's it makes you a better caregiver when you come back. So it gives you the opportunity to get away, to escape, to relax, to make some connections, get some other advice, everything else. But then it's back to work, I guess, as soon as you get back to the house.
Right. Well, and you just nailed it. There's two things I want to highlight there. So first of all is it's really hard to be a good caregiver when your cup is empty. If you don't take the time to fill your own cup and to go blow off some steam or to do whatever it is that makes you feel good again, you're not going to be as good of a caregiver as you would have been. So that's one. But the second one I wanted to come back to, and as I was telling my wife that we were going to talk today, she said, "Boy, I'd really love to hear this. How does Amanda feel when he goes and does these things, when he goes to a marathon or when he goes running or when he plays video games? Is she supportive or not?" And you answered it. She's supportive, right?
And in some cases and everything else, like I hope it motivates her in some ways too. So
Sure.
she's mentioned now, she's expressed after I went and ran the Disney marathon here this last time. She was really excited to do the 5K at Disney next year. So not that she's going to be running. She's not a runner in the first place or anything else, but she's like, that would be awesome if I could just go, and even if I need to walk, And even if I need to bring the wheelchair with, just in case I need it and everything, like that's my goal this year. I want to be able to at least walk that 5K. So,
That's awesome.
so that's what we're shooting for. And I don't know if it's going to be Disney. I don't know what's going to happen, but we're going to find one. And the other day, she's going out for a walk every morning, either with myself or on her own or with her parents. And she just takes a lap around the block, is about a mile. And yesterday she did 3 miles walking around the block.
Wow.
In a row. Walking the whole way. She's got her wheelchair with her, but she was able to go through and get 3 miles in. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, so fantastic.
Fantastic. You're right. And well, you motivated her, and she probably motivates you right back.
Right, exactly. Well, every time I go out, I've got I kind of make it a purposeful act and everything. When I'm going out for a long run, I've got a bracelet, one of those rubber armband things from Leukemia and Lymphoma Society and everything, and that's kind of a little bit of a memento as I'm going out for a run.
Yeah.
Just to remember, what the purpose is. Why am I doing this?
Right.
I'm fundraising for Leukemia and Lymphoma Society too, pretty regularly, and part of that is because we're kind of through all of the chemo that we can do. The treatments that are out there for leukemia, we've kind of run through the course. Yeah. So the things that are coming up now, the most recent ones that she's done, weren't available 3 years ago when she was diagnosed.
Wow.
So we're looking for new stuff.
Yep.
But I'm also looking for new ways to kind of promote, or just to push her, to help her, be more motivated, more excited. I can't do that if I don't have some time to go and get some other resources and everything else. And so Jax gives that.
Well, I want to come back to Jax in a second because I'd love to know how you heard about it, who introduced you, what your first you said your first event was, but where did you have to hear? But before I get to that, I'd like for you to shine the light a little bit on some folks that have helped you. Now that could have been family, it could have been friends, it could have been neighbors, it might have been someone Jax, but that's not necessarily the fish I'm fishing for here. And who would you like to shine the light on? Who's helped you so that you could be the best caregiver you could be?
And our direct family has been just so supportive. So my parents, Amanda's parents, several aunts and uncles and everything else that have been able to be there and help us out from the beginning. Mm-hmm. So we've never been alone. When we started this whole thing off, it was a revolving door coming into her hospital room for that first 30 days in the hospital. And we always had other people around. Work was very supportive, so I was able to take some time off. I mean, for 3 weeks, I was pretty much there night and day the entire time. And then since then, as things have kind of started spreading out, I mean, definitely our parents have been just absolutely, the best. Awesome. Amanda had 100 days at Mayo for a bone marrow transplant. I'd be down there over the weekends. I was working remote Mondays and Fridays, so I'd be there Friday through Monday. And then her parents would usually be around, just kind of taking turns. So her mom, her dad, an aunt, all came in and would spend the time with her over the week. So she always had somebody there with her at the apartment we had down in Rochester. Yeah. Now she's got twice a week, she's going down to Mayo for additional treatments. And so again, I haven't really had to take a lot of time off for those. I focus on the days that we know we're going to be meeting with the doctor, with her transplant doctor. So the times where we can really get answers to questions and everything like that. And then she's able to kind of, trade off. My mom, her dad, her mom, her aunt, a good friend of ours that's out of work right now, is bringing her just about, once every week. So Kendra, Linda, Jack, Cheryl,
thank you.
Cheryl, lots. Yeah, thank you. I mean, there's just a ton of people out there that have really been helping us out through all this.
Yeah. Well, let's see if you agree with this statement. So I was pretty stubborn for a while. I was pretty confident I could do it myself. People did offer to help. I didn't accept it very well. And at some point, maybe I was just beaten to a pulp, or I didn't have any energy left. I accepted some help, and I saw an interesting thing happen. First of all, Allie really enjoyed it because she got to touch base with someone that she wasn't seeing very often, and she had some quality time. Now, granted, it might have been quality time in the chemo room or in the car, but it was time she didn't have with this person, and so that made her a little bit happy. The second thing that happened is the person who helped felt great for being able to help, and I realized that I was um, I was monopolizing all of that feeling by not allowing other people to help, if that makes sense. And when I was able to share some of that, everybody benefited. I got a break. Allie got some improved caregiving for a short period of time, and the other caregiver then felt great that they got to help out. Have you experienced that at all?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it's been good in a lot of ways. I mean, there's never been a time that Amanda's had somebody else there and she's like, I don't want that person here with me again. Like she usually tells me the stories about things that they talked about and things that they did. And I don't have the energy to have or the creativity to come up with all those things and to, just continue to have new conversations every time. So, having her have access to 8 or 10 people, various different times to be able to give her rides for, long trips in the car to Rochester or, sit by her bed while she's getting a treatment that takes 2 hours for an infusion. Like not every day is awesome. But I also, I don't, I don't think any of them has really expressed or has given any indication that they've been felt like it was a hassle for them at all. I a lot of times now I turn my back and all of a sudden it's like, and there's, now her parents are there or,
Yeah.
now somebody else is stopping by and she's like, oh yeah, I called this person and they're going to be around for a while. So if you want to go and do something, um, one of the first times that came up all out of nowhere, she had a friend that she just hadn't told me she had made some plans and they were going to stop by for a little while. And so if I wanted to go, I could do that. Reached out to Jax, and within 5 minutes, Kyle's like, "Where are we meeting?" And able to go out and just have a drink. So
Yeah.
good opportunity to get away and try something new.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. And I'll just remind people that one of the things you do by donating to Jax is you give people an excuse. You give them that motivation. You give them that little push that they need to go fill their cup, to go vent that steam, to go do what they do. And I found myself, really kind of like trying to justify, can I step away and can I be away for 2 hours to do that go-kart event? And every time I do it, of course, I'm so glad I did, and I feel better, and Allie's happy. And at one point, she had to practically push me out the door because I didn't want to leave her alone. And but what you do as a donor is you help us help ourselves, which ultimately then helps the person who's going through the cancer journey. So thank you for donations. Please keep that coming. Chris, I've got a couple more questions for you.
Yeah.
How did you hear about Jack? Who was your first point of contact, and how did that go? Was it scary? Was it burdensome? Was it comfortable? Like what was that like?
Yeah, it was a little odd, I suppose. So again, we were in some support groups through Gilda's Club, and they had flyers around for Jax, and I remember kind of glancing at a couple of them a couple of times, but the first time that I had actually had a date that was available and I was able to make it to, I think, was that one at Paisley Park.
Okay.
And it wasn't necessarily like on top of my list of something to do. It was something to do.
Right.
So I jumped on it and just signed up, and it was an amazing tour, and it was great information, and it was fun. But the whole time I'm like, I got a chance to chat with some people a little bit, but I was really just looking forward to when we get to kind of sit around a table at the end and be able to just kind of chat and just figure out who everybody else is that's around here. And so that was great. And after that, I kind of quickly started watching, like, whenever I possibly could. I'm like, what's next? I mean, once a month we were going out to do something, And, it might be 2-3 hours or something like that. It wasn't really a long time frame, but it was unique. I think the second one might have been the carving ice blocks.
With you, I, and like 2 or 3 others, right? It was
Yeah,
so bloody cold that day, and
man.
I didn't care.
January, like -20 degrees outside, wind chills of -40 or something. I remember having a tough time getting out there. We're going out to like, Shakopee or Chanhassen or something. We're
Yeah,
driving along and there's snow drifts blowing across the road that are,
right.
5 feet high and everything in some places. So, we luckily had a place outside that was in between a bunch of big trucks.
Yeah,
And, he kind of gave us the lesson inside, and then 2 of us would go out at a time.
yeah.
And it's like, here's the chainsaw, here's the block of ice. Now we're going to carve a dragon head
A dragon,
out
yeah.
of this block of ice. Just it was unique. It was fantastic. It was just
Yeah.
a very different kind of an experience. Not as much time to chat with everybody else apart from that, the time inside the little warming house that they had, but it was different.
Well, and so now you bring up another great benefit of Jack's, and I've had someone tell me this, and it resonated with me, so I've repeated it so many times. But so often the caregiver gets lost in the journey, and so even when you go to work on Monday or you're talking to your own mom, on the telephone, one of the first things they ask is, "How's
How's
Amanda?"
Amanda? Yeah.
Right? And you're thinking, "Hey, here I am." Of course, you don't say that because you realize that that is the most important question, but you kind of feel like you get lost. And when you go do an ice carving event, you can't help but talk about it on Monday morning. I mean, people are like, "How's your weekend?" You don't even mention Amanda until the third or fourth sentence, because the first 2 sentences are all like, "I froze my butt off, but I carved a super cool dragon with a chainsaw," and they're like, "What?" Like, and so that's what the dollars go for, is you're actually allowing a Jack the opportunity to talk about themselves for a couple minutes, right? You got to remember that most of the conversations are about how's your wife doing, how's cancer, how's the prognosis, like, which is appropriate, but
Yeah.
it sure is nice to maybe have something else to talk about a little bit, right? And we're creating those memories, we're creating those interactions, we're creating dragons out of ice, and we're doing that. And yes, it costs a little bit of money, but that therapy that we get from that chainsaw cutting through ice and talking to our brethren, is kind of like the MasterCard commercial. It's priceless, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Pretty amazing. We're gonna wrap up here. I got one last question, and then we're gonna segue out to a video of one of our other Jacks, Mr. Dan Kramer.
Sure.
Have you met Dan at all? Did you meet him?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, Dan's fantastic.
Yeah, fantastic guy, and he's got a great message for us in parting. But I want to ask you, you've been through this journey for a while now, and we have the honor, if you will, of welcoming new Jacks into our community. And I'm sure that until they figure out how to solve all the flavors of cancer, that will never stop.
Right.
What do you tell a new Jack when they come on board? Maybe they've really only been in this journey for a month or two, maybe 3-4 months. You've been in it for a couple of years. I've been in it for over 5 years. What do you tell them? What's your word of advice on how they can not lose themselves, be the best caregiver they can be, and navigate the journey? What do you say?
I think the key thing is ask for help and take care of yourself. And you know, every one of us goes into this. There's not a question of, are we going to help that person that we are a caregiver for? That is the first thing at the top of our mind every moment of every day.
Yes.
Is how we will next be, helping and aiding and taking care of that person.
Yeah.
But it's nice to have at least the second thought in your mind, and what else do I need to do to take care of myself?
Yes.
And in a lot of cases, that is just ask for help. And there's people out there that will do it. Amanda's got a benefit coming up at the end of this month. I can't count the number of people that have just flooded in to help us out with supporting us throughout all of that. And we hear the same thing for other people's. We've seen Jacks that all of a sudden, like their house won't work. They can't get their wife in, like the wheelchair, all the other stuff that's in there, the scooter or whatever else you need to have and everything. Like they need to move. There's people with 5 kids, and trying to figure out how to go from having a stay at home spouse taking care of 5 kids to
Right.
then being the stay at home spouse taking care of 5 kids and your spouse. Like that's
And a full-time job.
it is a whole lot more than a full-time job. You're taking care of the full-time job for 2 people, and
Right.
you need to ask for help, and you can't do it without taking care of yourself. So I think those are the things to keep in mind.
Wow. Chris, thank you for your time. My best to Amanda. As I mentioned coming in, I know you both. I consider you friends. I wish you nothing but the best, and I thank you for your time.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Rich. Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. And as we depart, we're going to leave you with a video from one of our most active contributors. He runs our Clatch. He is a Jack. He is a contributor. He is a member. His name is Dan Kramer, and he's going to leave you with a couple minutes of parting wisdom. So this is Dan. Thank you all.
Hi, I'm Dan Kramer. I've been a member of the Jack's Caregiver Coalition for about 19 months, ever since my wife Cassie was diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer. And I have a lot of memories of Jack's. I remember sitting in Cassie's doctor's office as we were getting educated on what it means to have metastatic breast cancer, and them handing me a pamphlet for a caregiver support group. And that was Jack's. And I remember the relief that I felt that there was a group like that out there. I remember the first time I sat down with a fellow Jack's member for a one-on-one, and how it felt to not be alone and to benefit from all of his wisdom of what they had learned on their journey, and how much that helped me and Cassie as we navigated our early days. I remember the first time that I went to a Jack's Caregiver Clatch, which is our monthly discussion groups for caregivers. It's a co-ed discussion group. And I remember how welcome I was made to feel, how someone handed me a beer when I walked in and introduced me to everyone else, and how easy it was to participate. And I remember the many clatches I've attended since then, and hearing from so many caregivers and the support they all give each other, and how much each and every one of those has helped me and given me something tangible I can use as we face this terrible illness. And finally, I remember the first time Cassie and I made a contribution to Jack's, and how good that made us feel, knowing that we could help support the mission and advance the mission. So we're going to be making another contribution this week, and we hope that you'll consider that too. Thanks so much, and please support Jack's Caregiver Coalition.